Hello, my beautiful angelic baby kittens. We are at episode 36, my month with a billionaire. So I am standing in the fucking hour of terror with good old Dana in the kitchen, and Daddy Harley comes out and is like, cat. I'm like, this motherfucker. Right when I was gonna lay into the enemy, I turn, I'm like, Harley. And he's like, hey, why don't you come back into the vault with me and we'll have a chat before bed? I'm like, this is assuming that I want to sleep in the bed with you, sir. And he's like, can you please just come? I'm like, fine. I look at Dana and I'm like, I hope that you know that this conversation isn't over. We can have more of a talk and have more of a discussion about this later, Dana. And she was like, no, I think we've said everything. I'm like, no, I haven't. I follow him up the stairs and I walk into the vault and he closes it. And he's like, okay, come over, get in bed. I was like, no, we're gonna chat, we're gonna sit at the couch. So when you walk into the vault, on the right, there's a big fireplace and then a seating area with the table and the couch. And then there's the little bench in the bed. So I drag him over to the couch and we're just sitting across from each other. And I'm like, I can't believe that you left without literally saying anything. You just walked out with Dana, you just followed her like a little baby duckling, and you didn't tell me like, hey, I think I'm gonna leave. And you just walked out. And he was like, look, Kat, there's a little bit more to the story. I need to explain to you exactly what was going on. I'm like, yeah, because Dana just seemed like she was trying to get you out of there because she thought you were gonna start crashing out, but you were fine. Like, you wanted to see Teeny. And he was like, that's not the only reason that Dana took me out of there. I'm like, all right, well, why don't you start from the top? And he goes, okay. Remember how I told you about how Teeny and I met when we were in rehab, and her and I started kind of having a little bit of a relationship and everything. So she originally was very, very shy. She was like, came into the rehab center fresh off of doing like Broadway shows and music videos, and she was a theater kid, and she comes from a very wealthy and prolific family in the OC, and she just like was very shy and wasn't trying to get there because her parents made her be at rehab like many of the younger people there. I was like, okay, well, how old is she now? And he was like, she's 27. I'm like, okay. He's like, she gets there. She doesn't really want to talk to anyone. She makes a couple friends, but for the most part, she just kind of keeps to herself. And then one day we were all in the rec room and we were just kind of hanging out, and we were all going to watch a movie, and we were allowed to choose what movie that we were watching. And so me and the other residents were all trying to figure out a movie that we all agreed on. And I really wanted to watch Shawshank Redemption because it's one of my favorite movies. And she had said that she had never seen it. I had started talking to her and we started kind of bonding over the fact that we both grew up in California, very close to each other. And I was kind of telling the premise of Shawshank Redemption, and she was saying it sounded really sad and she didn't like sad movies and something that she wasn't gonna wanna watch. And I told her that she should actually just give it a try because it would be worth it in the end. And she agreed. And I told her that I would sit with her, and we were eating snacks. We were having some popcorn and Swedish fish because those are two of our favorite snacks. I'm like, wait, those are my favorite snacks too. And he was like, I know. And we just kind of from there hit it off, and we just started spending a lot of time together, reading together, going on walks together, watching different movies. I was introducing to her a lot of movies that she'd never seen because she grew up in the OC and was like in a very, very strict dance conservatory, ballet, and all this. She didn't really watch a lot of movies or have a lot of pop culture references, so I was kind of teaching her that. Her and I kind of started just being a little bit more and more close, and eventually it did turn romantic. Now, as you know, I have the thing that I really like. I was like, yes, your group proclivities. And he was like, exactly. And he's like, obviously, we did a lot of group counseling and stuff. So all the sober living coaches and everyone knew everyone's business. We all talked very openly about it, and we talked about it in group sessions and everything. So Dana would be in the sessions and everyone knew what it was. So then one day I was with her and she was asking about it because she actually had never experimented a lot. She didn't have a lot of experience. She had dated a couple guys and everything, but she never had a boyfriend really, since she was so in this program of dance and theater. And she was asking me about the lifestyle that I had lived in with my wife. And I was telling her about how free it felt for me and how I really liked it. And she had said that she'd always kind of been a little bit curious about women and she just didn't have any experience. And so I was telling her about my experience. And then she asked me one day, was like, I would really like to experience what it's like to be with a guy and a girl to see if maybe I am bi-curious, because I think I am really interested in that. And he was like, obviously I was excited, but it was something that was a part of my programming where everyone was like, you need to try to get your sexual preferences under control because we think this is tied directly to your addiction. He was like, because they believe that I have an addictive personality, which is very true. And so I was addicted to having this experience with multiple partners, being the one that sits there and watches, and having this addiction to a level of control. But I knew that she wanted to try it, and it really excited me. And I really wanted to try to get someone in on it with her. And so we were making plans. We were trying to like scope out the other residents, seeing who might be down. And I ended up telling Dana that this was something that I was very interested in, but I knew that she wouldn't approve since she was my sober living coach, and she told me that she wanted to have a conversation with me and Teeny about this because she thought that this was just gonna end up in a bad road. And he's like, so we ended up having a conversation over it, and Teeny was like, yeah, I understand. It's just something that I am interested in. And even though there weren't any strict rules against residents fraternizing, it wasn't exactly prohibited, but it wasn't encouraged either. Like, it was very known that there were people hooking up and stuff, but it was very like a case-to-case basis, whether they would say anything about it or if they thought that something shouldn't be. And he was like, so then one day late at night, Teeny came into my room, and her and I were just kind of messing around, and we were kind of chatting more about like what it would be like with another girl. He's like, and I was getting really excited. And then we heard a knock on the door, and it was Dana. He said Dana walked in, and one thing led to another. And as many of you very smarty sleuths in the comment section guessed, they started having their own little parties, the three of them. Apparently this started happening on a regular occurrence, and obviously it had to be very hush-hush because Dana would absolutely lose her job because, as we know, Dana just be crossing the line and the boundaries on every fucking occasion. And if anyone found out, she would lose her job and they would have probably been asked to leave. So apparently this was going on for a little bit, like a month or a couple months or so. And then one day, Harley said that he realized that he really could have proper feelings for Teeny and wanted to try to just do it, him and Teeny. And so he went to Dana and was like excited and was like, oh my gosh, I actually think that something could be real with Teeny because I really feel very understood by her and I really like her. And I wanted to know what you thought about that. And Dana apparently was like, actually, I've been thinking, and the things that we've been doing is really bad for you. I've just been doing it because I didn't want you to spiral, and I was trying to keep you at bay. And I think that Teeny, because she's the one that wanted to do this with you, she's a bad influence and she probably shouldn't be here. He was like, and then a couple days later, Teeny was gone. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, so Dana's trying to play it off like she was doing this for your recovery to help you keep it under control. But really, she was doing it because she wanted to keep tabs on you two. And then as soon as you expressed that you probably actually had interest in Teeny and you wanted to be with her, she got rid of her. And he was like, I don't know if that's what happened. I'm like, Harley, that's exactly what happened. And he was like, well, Dana thinks that Teeny was just bad for me because I wouldn't have been trying to do the multiple people lifestyle again while I was in rehab if she hadn't expressed interest. I'm like, yeah, but even though you expressed interest, Dana was the one that fulfilled the fantasy. Like, Dana is the one that pushed you there. I was like, isn't it kind of crazy that your sober live-in coach is the one who has actually actively kept your fantasies and your proclivities alive by being an active participant in them? She's the one that brings them in. She's the one that's been there with the girls. Do you not see the pattern here, Harley? And he was like, look, I just knew that Dana was going to get triggered by Teeny. I knew Teeny was going to get triggered by Dana. I just didn't want to deal with it. And so when Dana said she wanted to leave, I just decided to go with her. I'm like, Harley, I don't understand how you don't see how crazy this is. And he was like, look, it's not that crazy because of the fact that Dana is very non-traditional in her route of healing. And so she is helping me in a different way. I'm like, I understand that, but what has your therapist told you? And he was like, oh, well, I can't tell my therapist about Dana because Dana would lose her license. I'm like, doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that tell you that Dana is the only person in your life that actually knows the comings, goings, and the inner workings and everything of everything in your life? The doctors, the pharmacists, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the hypnosis, whoever's on your team, she knows everything. But the main people that are there to help you with your therapy, your mental health, your addiction, and your sex addiction, whatever it is that you have going on, your therapist and your psychologist and your psychiatrist, they don't know about Dana. I was like, Harley, you need to talk to them about Dana. Like, this is a really big problem. And he was like, okay, look, can we just not get into this tonight because I'm really, really tired. It was a long night and I just want to like snuggle up with you and go to bed. I'm like, Harley, I don't really know what to say. Like, I'm disappointed in all of this, and I truly wish that you had just at least come in and been like, hey, I'm gonna leave, like you just dipped out. And he was like, look, I'm not good at this, right? Like there's a reason that my marriage fell apart, my relationship fell apart, and I have been in a string of dating circles since then. I'm not good in relationships and I'm not good with dating. I don't know what I'm doing. I just should die alone. I'm like, okay, brother, we don't need to like go so dramatic, right? And he's like, can we just go to bed? I'm like, okay, fine. I go and get ready. I come back in. He puts on his whole shigamaloo, rigamaroo, sleep era thing. He puts it on and then I get into bed. He big spoons me and we fall asleep. The next day rolls around and I am determined more than ever that I am going to get into a situation where we can get Dana out of there, we can get Harley alone from her for an extended period of time, and we can try to figure out how to get him bonded with Daddy Harley, get him more bonded with himself, and try to help and heal this man. So I'm like, we're going into deep scheming mode. So I go downstairs and Daddy Harley is already sitting at the island just having some cereal. Kristen's clearly in bed still, and I don't know where the hell Dana is. I guess she's in her room, and Chef Drew is out there. I'm like, hi, Chef Drew. And he's like, oh, I heard you guys went to Jumbo's. I haven't been there in a minute. He's like, it used to be hella, like, sketchy when I used to go there. I'm like, oh, no, it's sketchy, but in a good way. Like, it's really nice now. Like, it's a vibe. And he was like, okay, I believe you. I'm like, yeah, I'll have some eggs and bacon and some avocado. And I just, like, sit on the stool next to Harley. And I'm like, hey. And he's like, hey, how'd you sleep? I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, how do you feel this morning? He's like, I feel okay. I'm like, I wanted to tell you that last night we did talk to Teeny after Jumbo's. And he was like, oh, you did? And I'm like, yeah, me and Kristen. And she was telling us that she has another side of the story with what happened when she had to leave. And I think that you should hear it from her and talk to her. So I did give her your number and she's probably gonna text you, but Harley, she's relapsed and she's in a bad situation living with some unauthorized prescription medicinal man. And I think that you really should meet up with her. And I gave her my number too in case she needed anything, but she really wants to reconnect with you. And he was like, you don't mind if I reconnect with someone that I used to have a thing with? I was like, no, of course not. And he was like, okay, well, I will just wait for her to text me and see what happens. And I was like, I think it's really important that you reconnect with her, talk to her about what happened. And also Harley, I think we need to help her because she went to another place after the rehab that she had to leave with you. She didn't like it and she'll tell you more about it, but she got kicked out of her parents' house, which is why she's working there. So I think we really need to help her. He was like, okay, we will. I'm like, also, I was wondering if you knew when Dana was gonna go see her kids next. And he was like, oh, I gotta check, but I actually think it's coming up pretty soon, like in the next week or so. I'm like, okay, well, I was thinking that we could take Daddy Harley to Vegas while she's going to Chicago to see her kids. He starts laughing. As he's doing this, Kristen gets up and she's coming out and she's like, good morning. And he's like, I see that you and Kristen have been scheming. I'm like, Kristen, I'm telling you about the Vegas plan. She's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, okay, he said that Dana's probably going to Chicago in the next week or so to visit her family. He's going to find out the dates and we can plan Daddy Harley's trip at the same time so we can go on a Dana-free Daddy Harley trip. And we're like, yay. And Harley was laughing. He was like, okay, that actually does sound fun. He's like, I have a couple of friends that have opened some new clubs over in Vegas, so I am due to visit, so I think we can probably just make a trip out of it. Me and Kristen are like, yay. We're like kind of bouncing around and stuff. And we just hear, what are y'all so excited about? We look over, and there's the warden. And she has walked from downstairs and she's holding her laptop. And she's like, what's going on? And we're like, oh no, nothing. We're just saying that it's a beautiful day to be away. And she's like, okay. And me and Kristen are like, ha. And I'm like, okay, I have a couple of places that I need to go look at. And then I will go over to Daddy Harley's house and speak to Carol and everything and start planning. And Kristen's like, oh, I don't have anything going on today. I'm like, okay, Kristen, why don't you come with me to go look apartments and then we'll go make a visit to Daddy Harley. And she was like, that sounds amazing. And Harley's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. He's like, you guys really are gonna kill my dad on accident. He's gonna have a heart attack from having too much fun to have both of you there. And we're like laughing. And Dana's like, oh, you guys are going to see Harley's dad tonight? And Dana's like, oh, you guys are going to go see Harley's dad today? And we're like, none of your business. We get our coffee, we get our breakfast. Me and Kristen get into the car, have our breakfast. I give Daddy Harley a kiss. I tell him that we're gonna see him later and then I'll let him know what his dad says. Kristen and I get into the car. Kristen and I get into her Range Rover, and we're just driving around chatting and scheming, and we go see my apartment, and then I call Carol and I let her know that we're gonna go over to the Bel-Air mansion. We pull up to the Bel-Air mansion, the door opens, and Kristen and I are ready to put Daddy Harley Vegas minus Dana plan into works. So yes, y'all, episode 37, Scheming with Daddy Harley. I love you and I see you. Big hug, big kiss.